All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 464 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. We've got a whole gaggle of folks here today. We've got Daniel, who's staying up early or late because he's a socialist who gets lots of holidays in Europe. Ken, the voice of reason, who's representing AT&T today. I'm representing Verizon. And, of course, Lonnie's going to be T-Mobile.
5 seconds.
And Mark Anthony, who's your cell provider in Canada?
Kudo.
Okay, so Paul S. is on line 3, and we can all tell which telco provider he's got. We're going to get to the Ace return to Eddie Trunk. That's why I'm calling this Wobble Talking, because what the fuck is the only response I've really got to that whole second 02. There you go. That's a British one, actually, that I remember using. So good evening to everyone who's joined us. Thank you for joining us live. Like I said, we are going to talk about Ace's call into Eddie Trunk. I was going to go see Spinning Gold, but it's already been pulled from the theater where it was showing. Now it's 32 miles to the closest cinema from me, so I think I'm just going to wait for it to hit streaming. What I do want to ask everyone who's watching or chiming in the comments, who steers the ship through the stormy sea? Daniel's lost, and I'm getting seasick.
Sorry about that.
Has anyone actually seen that movie yet, or has everyone's lives been too busy? Lonnie raised a hand. Yay! All right.
My!
I remember the photo.
Yeah. What's the Lonnie review of Spinning Gold?
Well, for starters, there were as many. I was actually correct. There were as many people in the theater as there were for Detroit Rock City in 1999, which is not many. 2 minutes before showtime, it was just me and my wife in the theater. We're like, wow. But some people did come in. We were not the only ones. And, most people have probably read different things and see different things online. But from the jump, it was just factually inaccurate, and I knew that going in, but like in the Casablanca showcase with Neil Bogart, the band comes out and it's January 1974, and they come out and they play "Shout It Out Loud," and I'm like, okay,
Oh no!
I'm like, okay, this is how it's gonna be. So at that point, I just kind of like, I'm just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie. And there are many inaccuracies as you go, and I knew that going in. And like I said, from the jump, that's the way it's going to be. But what got me more than anything is that they show them in the preview of the movie, it shows them going to a big hall, and it's supposed to be Cobo Hall. It's supposed to look like, and it's supposed to be Kiss Alive. And I thought, okay, well, here's where you're going to see the record company turning around. Here's where, the story's really going to get going, and where Neil's going to strike gold, and things are going to start going good. But it's not the case. You see Kiss perform this live show in front of all these people, and then you cut to after the show, and it's Gene without makeup, and he's complaining why the band isn't bigger. And then for the next half hour, 45 minutes, it's still about the record company continuing the struggle. And that was disappointing to me. And the big turning point in the movie was Donna Summer, and they made Donna Summer out to be the hero that saved Casablanca. And, I'm not the biggest Donna Summer fan in the world. I can't sit here and tell you the accuracies or inaccuracies in Donna Summer's story. I can't do that. And I'm not going to sit there and try to do it. But I do know a lot about Kiss's history. And I do know that Kiss Alive is the album that saved that record company's ass. And it was very disappointing to me that they really minusculed that and downplayed it. Now, at the very, very end, it's Neil Bogart telling the story. He goes, oh, and we finally figured out the secret to Kiss, and that was to let them release a live record, and and then Beth became a single, and but it was a footnote, and I was like, that's not the band that's still touring 50 years later that sold 100 million albums that saved your ass. And again, I knew it was going to be like that going in, but at the same time, all that being said, I am happy that Neil's story was told. Maybe not to many people initially. Hopefully, a lot of people do end up watching it and seeing it when it comes on streaming or whatever the case may be. And I hope that people still appreciate the sacrifices and the Neil took in his life to make these bands such as Kiss or Donna Summer successful. But there were more inaccuracies than I thought going in, and the fact that Kiss wasn't portrayed as being as successful as they were.
You know what? I gotta just say one thing. I'm just gonna say this, and I'll let everybody else say their piece. The one thing I found, or I think I've got from all these reviews and stuff, and hearing this thing, and even just hearing Lonnie describe this now, I come to the conclusion that Mr. Bogart's son knows nothing of his father's history. I mean, if this is the way the film was made, like that right there, the Casablanca showcase, and they played Shout It Out Loud. Come on, man, you can't honestly tell me that he didn't know that was made like well later in their career. Like, if he doesn't know that, then he knows nothing of his father's history. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Mark, I knew you were the one that's got the biggest problem.
It's probably
so Mark's actually defending Bob Ezrin's integrity here. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Yes, for once I will. Yes.
Yeah, it's probably a choice. They thought, well, am I going to play Nothing to Lose in the movie, or am I going to play?
It's a poor
choice. More accurate. I agree
no.
to be more accurate, but
they played a song that the audience is going to know. That's why they chose Show.
That's exactly
it
right.
is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So rather than make it accurate, we're just going to placate to
artistic license. And that was something that was made clear about the movie all along. That if you were a diehard Kiss geek expecting a linear history of Casablanca with Kiss in the primary role, you weren't going to get that.
No, I wasn't expecting that.
No, but Casablanca is so much more than just about Kiss.
Yeah.
With the other acts that were an integral part, it is interesting to give Parliament that screen time. Cutting out the Village People is egregious, from their importance and the whole disco side of the equation. But again, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know what was touched on in it. But disco was the whole deal with Casablanca. They were the kings of disco. Obviously they didn't have Casey and the Sunshine Band, but they were putting out product like crazy, which led to their downfall ultimately. So, I get it. Joyce was Donna's manager as well. So, again, I do want to see it. I wanted to see it in the cinema, but once it didn't have the real music in it, it's like, screw that. I don't want to listen to cheesy copy songs from those, from those great acts that were on the label. So I will see it eventually. Anyone else see it, or are we all just
no? We haven't seen it, but I think all of us will see it. But I do. I think it's kind of mesmerizing that they release it to the cinema. We all knew that it would tank.
Yeah.
This should be released, through Netflix or something. But yeah.
But no, Daniel. Honestly, Daniel, the one thing where I think that maybe people were thinking that it was going to be in the theaters, because initially, if memory serves me correctly, there was all kinds of talk about Justin Timberlake being involved as Bogart, and having all these other people in there, like bigger name actors in there.
That was a long time ago.
And that all of them have dropped off, and we get these other actors that people don't know as well. And then what did they expect? No,
it's a classic B movie that should go directly to video in the old days.
DVD.
Well, Lonnie, did you ever see the Def Leppard biopic that was on VH1 years back?
The Hysteria one,
yeah. And was it better or worse than that?
Better, please.
Do you prefer AT&T or Verizon? I don't know. I'd put it in the same category. I mean, like I said, from the jump, and I like the Shout It Out Loud thing. I thought of Mark right away when they played Shout It Out Loud. I go, of the guys on the show, Mark's the one that's gonna have the biggest problem with that. But sitting there watching, like, okay, I get it why you play Shout It Out Loud, even if you're just a casual Kiss fan or you're just a music fan. Oh, I have heard that Kiss song before, type thing. Like Ken said, are they really going to play Nothing to Lose? Are they really going to play Deuce, or something like that? Like, no one would know what it is. I'm like, oh, I don't even know. People say, well, that's Kiss, but I don't even know this song. So I get why they did that. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I'm fine with that aspect of it. But no, it was what it was, and there was more inaccuracies than I thought, but my biggest thing was that they painted Donna Summer as the hero, and not Kiss.
But Lonnie, how did the band look on stage? The fake Kiss band.
The makeup thing really didn't bother me.
Okay,
it really didn't. Watching the movie, I mean, yeah, a guy like us or anybody watching the show is going to be like, oh my gosh, that's terrible and that's wrong, but it's not that noticeable.
No one else went to see it, so they won't know.
Well, yeah, not that many people saw it to notice the difference. But I think to the casual fan too, like, oh, okay, there's the cat, there's the spaceman, there's this guy, there's that guy. It wasn't so egregious that.
But the moves then, did Gene move like Gene and Paul did the strut and all that? Okay,
for sure,
that's cool.
For sure, they did that, and they had the big Kiss logo in the back.
The other thing that I thought was really weird is that, not that I've ever seen Gene do this, but there's that clip that they showed of when they were playing on stage, and they zoom in on Gene, and he sings the part, and I think it was a Rock and Roll Night Party Every Day, and right after he sings his line, they zoom in on his face, and he goes, bleh, like he literally makes this noise. I mean, I've never heard him ever do that. Like, how the hell did they think that he does that on stage? What is he, 10 years old? He's not some kid, sticking his tongue out and making sounds into a microphone. Like, this is just embarrassing in lots of ways to me.
They want to underline the tongue thing. That's a lot.
We'll just have to wait.
You need a sound to go along with him sticking out his tongue.
They'll just have to wait until the real biopic. And then we can tear apart that one.
We can pick that apart too, I'm sure.
Oh God, I dread to think what's going to happen when Kiss does a biopic. I think people are going to.
Board's going to blow up.
I think Where's Drago has a very good point here. That it is nice to see Neil Bogart and Casablanca Records getting some recognition, albeit briefly, and getting savaged by reviewers generally. But it's still keeping his name out there. He isn't known like a Clive Davis. He's been dead for 40 years, so he is not remembered for what he was the music scene in the 1970s. So that is a positive. There was also another very good comment from Danny. Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing a lot more stories from Joyce, who was there. That was a great episode of Three Sides. Her telling some stuff. I thought there was some revisionism there. But still, you're hearing the stories from her perspective as co-manager of the band and also someone intimately connected with Casablanca, Neil Bogart, and the record label itself and manager of Donna Summer. So again, she needs some recognition in the industry as well for the job that she did. All right, before we get to Ace, I did get some Kiss mail this week. Got the new Off the Soundboard, which everyone else should be getting tomorrow. People were going to wig out over the credits errors because it's not consistent for Vinny. It should be Vinny or Vincent Cassano for the Creature stuff that he co-wrote, and Vinnie Vincent for the stuff that he co-wrote for Lick It Up. And they got Bryan Adams wrong.
No, with an I or instead of a Y.
With an I instead of a Y. So that's going to upset some people. So I'm going to trigger you on that. It is a super fun listen. Again, getting to hear Mark St. John do the Animalize songs is really cool. The poor guy didn't stand a chance, and he gave it his all on this performance. And we've got a soundboard to at least celebrate his tenure in the band. And that really is a very cool thing to get from this Off the Soundboard Soundboard series. I also got this today, and I've only had a chance to glance through it. It doesn't look like anything a diehard's going to enjoy, but it does have color pictures, and it looks like it's print on demand from Amazon. So I'm actually hopeful because a Mask Hysteria is going to go that route, so I get to see what something printed by them looks like.
That's mostly pictures.
Yeah. Well, there are some good pictures in there. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not a picture diehard, you'll see. But the text, it's mostly quoting from their autobiographies. Daniel?
Yeah, I got a digital copy of the Poughkeepsie show from one of our, one in the family. I don't know if he sent it to you, but I listened through about half of the concert, and I think it's really good. Mark St. John is a bit better than Vinny was at the beginning of the Creatures tour. Yeah, a little bit. But I think it sounds great. I mean, it's a good sound on the record.
Hey, it's historic.
Yeah. So I had a real fun. I'm going up tomorrow. I'll listen to the second part of the record. I don't know. Didn't you get that file today?
Yes.
Was it? Yeah. He's a good man, that guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
providing us with stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Kiss fans, we all know this, having done this podcast now for 500 episodes here, that there's always going to be somebody who's going to be complaining about something with this stuff. Let's just enjoy the music in this. I'm looking forward to it, and listening to it multiple times and absorbing it. And when I go to a concert, rarely have I ever gone to a concert that's been completely flawless and spotless. I mean, even Rush, my favorite band in the world, who I think are technical savvy people, even they've botched things here and there on stage, So I mean, it's never a perfect thing, and I just think that people should enjoy it. These are a soundboard recording of with Mark St. John. Who would have thunk it?
But will you go to the Toronto concert? That's the question.
We'll see. We'll see.
You have to, Mark.
Oh God, you're gonna be like
so
Harry and
disappointed
Meghan if they're going to the fucking coronation, Mark. We're gonna have to tune in every week and.
Lana's put the tickets.
I mean.
All right, getting back on track. Where's Drago? Again, one more thing. That was actually my first ever rock and roll single I purchased new. Was that Boardwalk? I Love Rock and Roll back when it came out. And one other one I want to talk about just before we move on. So there's a tape flip during, sadly, Young and Wasted. So halfway through the first sentence, they fade it into where it comes back at the end of the song. So you only get to hear a little bit of Eric singing, and there's no way around it. Tape flips are tape flips, and they're brutal. And then the last song cuts out at the end, which is No Major Losses, Rock and Roll All Night.
Hey, Julian, wait a minute. You said that they faded at the beginning of the first line of the song, the first vocal, right? Mm-hmm. And then it comes back in at the end of the song, right? They fade it back in.
You only hear a little bit of Eric singing.
So who's in charge of this tape flipping? Like Mr. Turtle? He's
Mark, go find this guy and put your finger in his chest. It was 38 years ago.
Kick his ass.
It's a cassette tape.
Come on, man. Really? Like it takes them 4 minutes to flip a tape? Come on, guys.
Do you think they were sitting there watching it? This would have only been taped for reference. They would never have been any intention to release it. All of our guesses are probably going to be that it was used for Paul and Gene to listen back to the performance to provide judgment upon the boy and whether he was deemed worthy, which
that is true. Because just really quickly, Rush, when they were touring from as far back as Test for Echo, they would always record on DAT tapes their shows, and behind the board you would see these DAT tapes there that the sound guy had, and a lot of these shows leaked because the fools would leave the tapes there, and once in a while a fan would go by and go yoink and take a tape and run the hell out of the concert with it, and next thing you know it would pop up on Dime a Dozen or something. But it's all reference for the band. You're right, Julian.
Yeah, and there are bands like Aerosmith record all their shows with intent to actually do something with them, but also mainly for posterity, because you're never going to release every single fucking show that you've ever recorded as a band, unless you're Metallica.
Yeah.
Or Pearl.
the Young and Wasted version should say in parentheses 8-track version next to it. So it's like, oh, this is what an 8-track would sound like.
Young and Wasted, the Verizon version.
Click.
The problem with Metallica is they are still making good music. So when you go and see a Metallica concert, you have to do with all this new stuff. I hate it. I want to hear the old stuff.
Oh, I love it because then you get something like Frantic coming back into the set, and you're like, holy shit, I haven't heard that in ages. TikTok. They haven't forgotten about it, and they always will pull out a gem now and then. And
so play the same 18 songs.
I could sit there watching
if you're a casual fan, you're on the when we always talk about Kiss should play these deep cuts, but when you're a casual fan like me with Metallica and I go and watch a Metallica concert, I hate those new songs. So I get it.
Oh,
why
come on.
Kiss play? No, I can't. I want to hear stuff from Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning.
But they do that.
Master of Puppets.
They do like
they do
medleys.
that. But then when they do the new stuff, let's go and buy a beer.
Yeah, no.
I don't have time to get into the new stuff.
Boom.
It's hit and miss. When Iron Maiden did
fan.
that to me, they did 2 new songs off the new album. I can't remember what tour it was.
Yeah.
But one was 8 minutes and the other was 9 minutes.
Oh my
and I was
Lord.
Suffering towards the end of the second new song. Like, I really need something like The Trooper or Power Slave right about now.
Fear the Dark.
All right.
Hey,
Ace
Steve.
Frehley.
Has he been in the news? Okay.
Yeah. So let's get back to Wobble talking. Ace called back into Eddie Trunk this week. Eddie spent an inordinate amount of time walking back the whole previous week conversation and setting the stage for a giant walk back before Ace ever got on the phone. So I think it's pretty clear that there had been communications about not dropping the dirt because self-incrimination is probably not a very good idea. And Ace came to his senses that a lot of the dirt that he probably has, he was complicit in, which wouldn't help anyone, nor would it be of any use to the peanut gallery. So it was already, before he got on the phone, going to be a downer. And it kind of got even worse from there because Ace comes on and complains that he's had a crazy week. Lonnie, have you had a crazy week?
I've had a crazy
Always.
week. I always have a crazy week. I'm
crazy.
Little inside baseball for the people who watch this. Like, I join like literally seconds before the show starts almost every week because I'm extremely busy guy. My job is my life. But Ace is really busy. He's recording 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then it's 8 hours a day. So he doesn't even know. But he's had a crazy week. He had a 5-second phone call. He had a exchange with Doc, and then some text messages that weren't returned. Was, I think, the extent of the craziness that was out of the usual from his routine, at least from what we were told. So that's what it was. He had a couple texts with Doc, a brief phone call with Doc apparently, and a 5-second phone call from Paul S. Allegedly. It's on the server. It's on the Verizon servers.
Because there are lots of Paul S's out there.
Yeah.
It may well have been Sinkin Stanley for all anyone knows.
Yeah.
Well, Laura went into his memory and she got the screen grab for him.
She got the screen grab.
Okay, but I gotta ask. Okay,
Yeah.
All of us have probably heard this now already. This interview. Now, how many of you were like me and extremely disappointed in the fact that Ace did not give us the goods? This man is telling us the whole week, I'm very pissed off. I'm going to be coming back and I'm going to be dumping the goods. You know, I don't believe a word this guy's going to say from here on in ever again. Okay. I was expecting garbage. I was expecting stuff from him. And of course, he didn't deliver. Was I surprised? No, because look, I'm not a fool. I know that he probably had like 10 lawyers calling him after that first interview and saying, "Don't you dare say anything about those guys on there," because they'll take him to the laundries, for that. So, but I mean, come on. I mean, on one hand, you got to admit, there was a part of me that was really hoping that he was going to come on this week and dump something on them, But how disappointing!
But, Mark, if you want Ace to deliver garbage, you just have to wait a few months for his next album to come out. Don't worry about it.
There you go.
Wow.
I didn't mean it, Ace.
That's a good one.
Voice
Sorry.
of reason.
I'm
Ken
sorry.
from the top rope.
You see,
Double axe handle.
that is a shame because again, he's working with Steve Brown from Trickster, and he had Joey Casada in there cutting drum tracks this week, and none of that was talked about. And if you wanted to divert away from the hour and a half, Dave B, made it very clear. He spent an hour and a half trashing Gene and Paul, whining, and then complaining about their business practices, and then basically saying that he would get up on stage in his underwear for $200,000 for the right deal.
Deep pockets.
So it's not about the fans. It's not about anything to him other than money as well.
Yep.
So he's as guilty of the same behavior that he alleges Gene and Paul are. And someone else also pointed out in the comments, look what he did to Richie Scarlett.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look at the people who he owed money to. Gordon.
Yeah, Giebert and those guys. Yeah.
John Regan. I mean, so it really seems unfair for Ace to be whinging because I think he set himself up. He thought that he was indispensable and that Gene and Paul called his bluff and said, we will go to the end of the fucking road without any of the originals, just like we did with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yeah.
It's
Australia,
about
2001.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. You can do it without one or two guys. No problem.
Call your bluff.
Bill Baker as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he talked about that again, of course. He said that they invited me up and to play, and but then Ace had said that he was not going to play with Tommy on the stage. Too
But they were not
spaceman
going to
and
have
makeup.
Tommy and them up there, I don't think.
Well, that's the thing, and it makes it sound like he's the one that. This is two stories here. He's the one because he wanted to be up there with the originals, but then Paul, on the other hand, is saying no, it's because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame only wanted, the originals.
I still think that's bullshit,
and I think it's I don't know who to believe anymore.
I don't really care because the Kiss that I care about is on Alive. I can play that fucking album. The Kiss I care about is on the latest off the soundboard. It's all history at this point. I can go and put on any Lineup's album at any time I want and celebrate the good times. Not this. Someone's called it a Brady Bunch of old, Brady Bunch soap opera or bunch of old ladies, which is very unkind to old ladies because.
But it's kind of true.
Why do you hate old ladies?
Yeah, what's up with old ladies?
There we go again.
But I think it's kind of true. I mean, we all have older friends. I mean, I've worked with guys, and when they surpass 70, a few years there, most of them lose it. I mean, they get stuck in. They can't change their opinion. They're stuck in old thoughts. And it's very hard, and you just have to deal with it. I mean, they say, all these coming into Sweden.
Whoa,
you can't say that word. I've always said that word, and I will continue saying that word. Well, okay, now play Love Gun.
Wow,
or
seniors
something.
are hardcore in Sweden.
Some sort of, a lot of seniors, they have a hard time changing their opinions, changing the way they are. And Ace and Paul, to some extent, reminds me of my old friends. You just have to, he's old. let him be, and then we can talk about something else. He has these views. They're archaic, but let him be. So that's what Ace. I think Ace is like that.
The Uncle
that first
Charlie
interview,
syndrome.
that first interview was a catastrophe. I mean, he's way out, and he's always been kind of spaced out. Talking about UFOs and all this kind of rubbish. But he's long gone. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking
Ace is long gone.
I'm thinking that Julian wished this was not live.
Yeah, no, Daniel, we can't.
You always go back and edit.
We can't
It
drop
wasn't
any
me.
N-bombs.
I'm just saying what the senior citizens say.
Even paraphrasing what someone else might be saying, we can't be doing that. So I
Sorry.
apologize to everyone out there. You know what? Moving back to the topic at hand, he complains that Gene and Paul have trashed him since 1982 as being unreliable, and then apologizes to Joyce for missing Neil's funeral because of drugs. Yet he'd been at Eddie Solin's funeral wedding as best man around the same time. So there's a contradiction. I don't think Ace remembers a lot of stuff from the time. But I think we can all agree that the bashing of Ace and Peter has gone way too far, has gone on way too long. And I can understand Ace's frustration at that. So it doesn't make any sense. I want to go back to some of his comments. I'm reading Sinzak's post because he did a nice summary courtesy of Tuck Watts. Paul Stanley apparently called Ace and in a 5-second phone call, allegedly said, "Fuck you, Ace, I'm not apologizing." Is that the right way for originals to be communicating with one another, Mark?
Well, sure, you can say that it's not. But I mean, I think at this point, after Paul heard or was told or however he got the information about what was said on there, I'm pretty sure he wasn't in a good mood after hearing that. So I'm not in the slightest bit surprised when I heard that he said that to him, because look, Ace said it himself too. These guys, in his eyes, he still says, "Oh, these guys are like still family to me." I might say this about Gene, but I still love Gene and this and that. Look, I've had arguments with my friends and my bandmates too, where they did something stupid. I called up and say, "Hey, you fucking asshole," or "You dickhead," or whatever. And then 10 minutes later,
I'm afraid of what you're gonna say. Someone's gonna say next now.
No, don't worry. No, on PC here. Don't worry. But I've said stuff like that back and forth with bandmates too. But the difference is that 20 minutes later we were back having a beer or something and just cooling off and just getting whatever the problem was resolved. It just seems like at this point, whatever the issues are between them, it's far, like there's a ton of it. It seems to be like there's probably a laundry list of issues these guys have. They can't just get talking to each other now at this point in their lives,
But Ace need the money. Kiss provides the money for him.
He said he doesn't need the money.
Ace is adamant.
Yeah, he says that, but he has no idea. He said he's been a
poor.
millionaire even in the mid-'80s when he had no money at all. So he has no clue. I don't think he knows how much money he has got, and I don't think he's like a millionaire.
But is he
now? He's playing to 200 persons a night, 300 maybe. So and he's out there trying to earn an easy buck. But I think the most disturbing part is I don't think that Paul Stanley call is real. Do you think that? I can't see Paul Stanley calling Ace and telling him that, and then 5-second call telling him to F off.
I can believe it.
You don't think Paul would do that?
Let's go around the table. Ken, do you think that Paul Stanley called Ace and said those 5 words?
I think it's very possible. I'll just say that. It may not be, but I think it's very possible. I mean, it sounds like something he would say to me.
I believe it.
I believe it.
Am I the only one not believing that?
Do you really think that Paul Stanley's that that
do you
reserved?
think Paul would call Ace. I don't think he would bother.
This is
calling
Paul.
him.
I'm so sorry, Ace.
Yeah, but he wouldn't bother calling
wouldn't do
Ace.
that.
Why would he?
Yeah, I know he wouldn't do
call
that
him?
either, right?
Why would he even call him?
Why would Doc then
Sinking
deny
Stanley
it?
behind everything. Sinking Stanley might be behind everything.
Mhm.
Why would Doc then deny it to Ace? Paul didn't call you. What's the one up?
And why would he say, supposedly that because Paul was on AT&T had a service that he could,
That was the most
he wouldn't be able to call him.
He
I was
couldn't
like,
have possibly
what?
called him. Paul has AT&T.
What the hell was Ace on his Zenith computer with his tinfoil hat on?
God, man.
But Ace has no clue. Ace has no
It's
clue.
on server.
It could be anyone calling Ace. He has no clue.
At this point, I wonder when he says, I talked to my lawyers. I wonder if he even has lawyers. As he's like maybe called a random lawyer, and when they hung up, they're like, "Who was that guy who just called?"
His
us?
girlfriend. His
He's
girlfriend
got
might be his
Metallica's
lawyer.
lawyer. He said it last
Oh
week.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay, moving on from Daniel's N-bomb, we're going to go into.
Sorry about that, guys. I know you're kind of stingy over there in America with words. We don't have that over here.
Yeah.
We can say it.
There are just some white people don't drop here. not
Yeah, but it wasn't me. I'm talking about the senior citizens that I know.
not even conversationally. I pointed this out in one of the threads that I thought Ace had missed an opportunity to walk back. Not necessarily anti-Semitism, but the perpetuation of anti-Semitic tropes. That's a big deal currently when hate crimes are on the rise across the world. You see it in Sweden. You see hate crimes occurring there just as much as we do in America. Canada also has issues with First Nation stress and also other, immigrant groups. So it is something that is a problem for everyone, or at least to be aware of without necessarily becoming that dreaded woke or too woke. So was it a missed opportunity, and what are some of the other areas where you think Ace maybe missed out on a chance to use that 90 minutes he had with a lot of people tuned in to get a message across on a variety of things? Mark, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, if he is legitimately working on this album, which he keeps referring to being in the studio 8 to 12 hours a day working on it, I mean, you should talk more about it. I mean, if it's the best thing that you're going to do, and he keeps referring this as the best thing since the '78 album that's going to come out, well,
better.
Give me a reason to believe it. Like, talk about it a bit more. I mean, Julian brought up a good point. There's people that were working on it with him, people of note, people of name. Talk about it. I mean, this is a great opportunity to do. You have a lot of people listening in, and sure, maybe you made the mistake of getting everybody riled up and expecting to hear dirt. But, now that you have everybody's attention, why not go ahead and talk about things that might interest people as well? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that are Ace fans, serious Ace fans, and will be interested in hearing a new Ace album. So use that opportunity, man. Come on.
I'm really excited about the prospect that he has challenged us, saying that he thinks it might be the best album that he's done since his solo album, which is
taking a page out of the Paul's book.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it is interesting. Missed opportunities, Lonnie. What jumps out at you?
Between
I thought he was going to go down the right path when he, at one point in the conversation, he goes that I would like to address some anti-Semite issues, and I thought, oh, maybe he is going to go the right way. But no, he says, "Oh, you see that picture I sent you, Paul?" And I thought he was going to maybe steer the ship in a positive direction, but he went south instead. I honestly thought, like, oh, here we go. Maybe he goes, well, let me look at my notes here. And I thought maybe that was something in his notes that, oh, maybe I should clear that up. But no, in his notes were to go kind of back down that road a little.
Classic deflection. Yeah, I it's not about me. Look at Paul.
Correct. Right. And his notes were to point fingers. So, the other thing too, back to what he was talking about, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He talks about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like it was last week and not 9 years ago. I mean, he keeps referring. I know you wouldn't think it by listening to it, because he talks about it like it happened last week, and he's so upset about it still. That was 9. It was 2014, and much as it may pain some of us to admit it, that 2014 was 9 years ago. It was not last week.
No, but
we keep referring to it like, yeah, I'm still mad about that too. That when he double crossed me last week. It's true though. He keeps referring to it over and over and over again. I was driving home tonight, like, Ace's poor girlfriend has to listen to this probably nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, that he referred to a lot, and he also referred to a lot the $250,000 per show that they'll have to pay me to come on. That he referred to a ton of times as well.
I think it's safe to say from listening to this, it would really just picked up the conversation from last week, and it just kept on going, just him rambling on and on and on. And I think it's obvious listening to this how hard of hearing he is, because one, he keeps interrupting Eddie, and I don't think it's on purpose that he's interrupting Eddie. I don't think he can hear Eddie talking, so he's just going, and I don't think he hears him at all.
But what do you say about some people saying that he was kind of intoxicated during the first interview?
I don't think that's the case.
No.
I really don't believe that. As
No.
much as some people want to believe that, I don't think
It's just the damage of a former abuser added to age.
Yeah,
It is a known,
side effect.
Consequence, not a side effect, because it's life lasting. And he's never been the most clear of speakers, and now he's hard of hearing as well. It's like he's on a text phone at one point when he's, he couldn't hear Paul Stanley clearly because he hadn't activated his
my
visuals.
speaker.
Yeah.
Maybe Paul said, "I love you" or something. "I love you, Ace," and he misheard it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with Julian about, he did miss the opportunity there. He should have just the first thing start off to, I'm sorry if I offended anybody last week, my comments last week, blah, 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 that, that stuff. And then from there, just move on, and if you say, yeah, Paul called me, did that. Okay, that's fine. But then just stop. And it's like, but now I'd like to talk about my, album coming out. I have this song recorded. I have this many songs, and some of them sound like this. If you compare it to, my 78 album, I think it's going to be more, like Kiss riffs or whatever, something, and promote it. Yeah, New York Groove. And maybe even mention the cover song that he's doing, because he is, I guess, doing a cover song on there. Actually tell us what the song is. We can kind of like speculate, oh, yeah, it might work out well or not. So, yeah, he missed some opportunities there. He just probably needs, at this point, just stop. And then Eddie Trunk having a hard time stopping him or directing him. I think to a degree, I think, yeah, Eddie Trunk was trying to steer him one way, but then on the other hand, Eddie's probably getting great ratings the last couple of weeks.
Hell yeah.
Based on these the interviews with Ace, listeners. So
I think we've had a couple more good comments, about Ace and his makeup, with Ace saying that he screwed up and licensed it to them in perpetuity, and then he still gets royalties and shit from it. So someone probably told him about his contracts with the band. You want to screw it up completely, Ace, because these guys have done a good business, and look what they did to Vinny. And more appropriate, look what Vinny did to himself, because he lost his stuff because of judgments. It wasn't done maliciously by the band. He kept suing them. And, you give one of these guys a shovel, sometimes they keep on digging. And then they hand it to you to whack them with once it's deep enough. So, someone has probably told him that you don't have a leg to stand on, Ace. If you want to sue them, and he made it sound like he was gearing up to take legal action. And I don't think his case is as strong as Mick Mars's might be against his former bandmates. But, Ace will want to think about how the band is known to operate. They have the resources to outsue you. They can unless you're willing to spend a shit ton of money suing them. They've got all the resources. They've got real fucking lawyers that are dedicated to their business. That's what they do. Hey, Ace, I can't answer right now. I'm on Verizon. So, it's just going to get messy with threats because right now is someone changing the tape so we don't have a tape flip during Young and Wasted? That was like someone's 1980s
flipping the tape. I'm flipping it.
Phone going off. Let's go to some of the comments. Lonnie, you gonna stick up for Tommy here?
The constant bashing of Tommy didn't surprise me. I mean, he's talking about, he couldn't write a solo like that, and I can outplay him. And that doesn't surprise me that he went after Tommy. I mean, and he mentioned, you watched the video. Tommy giggled when Ace made that comment about me on the Howard Stern show. And
who's gone back and watched?
I've seen it. He does crack
I saw it too. I watched it too.
He does crack a smile.
I said, did he?
He did.
Yeah, why not?
That doesn't surprise. Yeah. The bashing of Tommy doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's who Ace has been. I mean, here, I don't know. The constant bashing of Tommy, I really don't have a problem with that. You know why? Because Gene and Paul constantly bash Ace and Peter. So why can't Ace punch back at Tommy a little bit?
But you know what though?
Fair.
Why don't they do it on fucking stage? This band has no sense of humor. You want to solve the two spacemen problems? Do it Phantom of the Park style. Have a guitar war between two spacemen. Which one can drop the rigging on the other one first?
I'll tell you though, he has a short memory though, and that, I'm sure that's not a big surprise. But I mean, Ace is saying that he can play circles around. I play these songs all the time. If memory serves me correctly, there's a very good video of the reunion '96 tour of how Tommy Thayer had to go back and reteach Ace all his shit again because he had no clue how to play it the way it was originally. So for him to come on here and say that Tommy can't play my stuff, I got news for you, chum. If he didn't know how to play your stuff as well as he did, then you wouldn't be able to play it now probably because you didn't know how to play it then, apparently, according to the information that we got. So
he doesn't need to rehearse.
No, not at all.
Mark, let's also be fair. They had to do the same for Gene and Paul, who had strayed away from the music as well.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Neither of those guys were playing like they were playing in the 70s. All of them had to relearn what they had been doing in their youth. The same goes for Peter with the drum parts.
Yeah.
There are plenty of quotes about him being reminded what a crazy ass drummer he'd been in 1975 and relearning that style of play for the tour.
I have no issue with that. I just have the issue that he's saying that he can't play my stuff. I can play rings around him. Well, obviously not, because he had to reteach you the stuff. And I have there's nothing wrong with them having to relearn
Tommy
it. But I'm telling you,
Tommy was there as a musical health coach.
Yeah,
for all of them, to bring them back to the original sense of the music, because he respected the music. He continues to respect that music every goddamn time he goes out on stage, because he plays it maybe without the panache of Ace, who wrote the riffs, but he plays them the same every fucking night, and does it with style. As much as someone who didn't write it can inject into it. So
I like Tommy. I think he does a great job. I've seen them many times with him, and I think that he does a fantastic job. And I've seen them with Ace when they first played in Toronto in '96. I thought they were pretty good. He wasn't perfect, but they were really good. But then I saw them in '97 when they did the Lost Cities tour, and he was shit. And the guy fell over on stage on his back. And Gene just looked at him, and the roadie gave him a look, and he said, forget it, don't pick him up. And they left him on the ground until the lights went black, and then the roadie came out and picked him up. I mean, come on, man.
Whatever. I don't know about you, but when Tommy first joined, I was kind of, hesitant. It felt kind of strange. But in hindsight, it's hard to pick a better guy doing that part. I don't see anyone doing it better than him. I wouldn't like to see anyone else, not even Bruce, I think. because Tommy is the perfect guy for the job. You know, kind of cloning Ace, adding a few new stuff, but mostly doing, you know, justice to the history of the band, and he does it perfectly.
Yeah, I would still rather see Bruce doing Bruce era stuff because Tommy's never done a good job on
No, that's he has a hard time doing the solos too, like you know, Creatures of the Night or Asylum or Unholy is really bad, but they don't play that stuff anymore, so that's no problem.
Yeah, I was surprised that he gave such love for Gene. You know, is about his bass playing, and saying that he thought he liked Gene's voice better than Paul's voice, and that may be part of the piss thing. You know, kind of he's just
like
saying
you
that.
can.
But I was like, oh, hey, you know, that's what I like, you know, too. But yeah, it was, you know, he shows love, and then he turns around the next moment, then he's, you know, hating, and it's a back and forth thing.
It's a mess.
It's like, no, I'm not gonna get up to stage with you, but if you pay that $250,000, yeah, I'm going to. It's all over the place.
Well, he probably thinks that if they paid Rachel, which he seems to think that they did pay Rachel, Ray, saying that she had an NDA with them, which is why she went quiet, and then she started talking about them again. But I haven't heard a peep out of her lately, so that was the right advice to give. That you know, just make her go away.
She was talking back when she
Paul's
started.
Sister.
When she put that stuff up for sale, right? That's when she was talking the last time I remember.
Yeah, and then she doesn't even still have all the music, you know, ended up in someone else's hands from what I hear. So she doesn't have any of that. She may have some of the collectibles, you know, the Nazi memorabilia, the family photos. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So what next? I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of comments here that, you know, impressed with Peter, continuing to take the proper high road. Where does Ace go from here, Lonnie?
I think Ace needs to take a vow of silence for the next few weeks. I think, although driving home tonight, I was just listening to it again. I was just like, you know what? I wish you would call in every week because this is freaking hysterical for my drive home. But I think it would be in his best interest just to lay low for a little bit. Or if he wants to come back on, like you guys said, come back on.
I don't think Eddie's going to have him on anytime soon.
No, probably not. But when he does reappear, let's reshift, let's refocus, and let's start promoting yourself and your new album. And he talked about, well, I'm going to take the high road. Well, let's really take the high road.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I think Eddie helped him out a bit. I think he talked to him before the second interview, and that might have helped quite a bit. Otherwise, Ace would have said maybe a thing or two that would have stood out and made some headlines. But secretly, Eddie Trunk is enjoying the, the mess, sort of, because he's getting a lot of views. But the thing is that Ace needs to focus on his album and his own music and forget about all this old stuff with Gene and Paul. He clearly loves them because they send him some checks. But as a relationship, being friends, that's been over for decades. So stay away from that. Stay focused on the music, on your band, and try to release something that is up to par this time around. That would be excellent.
Ken.
Yeah, well, first of all, that beeping you hear is some idiots outside. They were cutting down a tree, and it's a big old truck, and that's, if you heard that, you heard other stuff going on. But anyway, yeah, it's just one of those days here. But all I can say is AT&T recording this whole conversation.
Yeah, that was clearly AT&T out front.
It's Verizon putting up a new tower.
Yeah, there you go. One a little bit higher than the other ones. So yeah, I agree though that Ace should just focus on his new music now and try to promote that as much as he can. And Ace, no, I don't think it's garbage. I'll buy it. I will buy it. I always buy your new album.
It's got to be better than Spaceman. Come on, let's be honest. Let's be real.
Well, Spaceman.
Spaceman
okay.
had some moments on it, but it was not as good for me as Space Invader or Anomaly.
Yeah, and I hope it is, as good as he says it is going to be. If it comes anywhere in the area of the 7 to 8 solo album, I'll be very, very, very happy. So, but yeah, Ace, just stay off Eddie Trunk for a while and get back on the wagon.
Right, but Eddie is willing to have any member of Kiss, past and present, on, except for Bob Kulick, of course, who he refused to have on, apparently. Which is weird. I caught the tail end of Eddie's interview with Paul Gilbert the day before, and that's worth checking out the end of, because he's going pretty hard and heavy trying to get other members of the band onto his show about this. And what I do respect about Eddie is that he does have a loud voice in the metal community. I know he's very divisive, that people seem to either love him or loathe him, and very little in between, but he still does carry that torch for the hard rock that we grew up with, are growing old with, and he continues to have a platform that is very important to legacy artists. Lonnie, going back to that question I've already thrown to the other guys, your take on it.
Oh, we're
you already went to him. You didn't go to me.
You went to me first.
Oh, yeah, you didn't go to me.
The other Lonnie.
I was like, okay.
He's clearly flustered. Julian is clearly flustered still. So, what I think he should do, I think he should get back to doing his solo record. But in between doing it, he should go to his lawyers and get that document out of the safety deposit box there and start working on his new book. I definitely think that should be high on his next list of things to do.
Who should write it for him?
Well, it doesn't matter who. It'll probably take 10 years anyways to get it done anyways. So by that time, it should be okay to release. Yeah. But get him to work on his record. I mean, we want new music out, but I'm telling you, man, that book, man, get that thing out of the safety deposit box. Come on.
Release the Kraken.
So with Ace, I only have one bit of advice. You're the former guitarist in Kiss. It's clear, or should be absolutely clear to you now, that your value is in the catalog of songs that you're a part of creating. And it's probably better for it to remain that way, and for you to let the music do the talking. Maybe practice a little bit more for your live performances. Yeah, let the fucking music do the talking. It's a great album, but it's let his album speak. If you think that Kiss has missed you creatively, prove it.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
Prove it. Put that music out. Put all that energy into that album. Johnny Rotten or John Lydon, anger is an energy. Channel it into that fucking guitar. And let's hear some fiery riffs and solos on a new album. Let's hear some lyrics that express some of that rage, some of that anger without lightning or UFO theme, and just fucking don't bore us. Get to the goddamn chorus. That's another Joe Perry one. That's all I want out of this now, because the drama, the soap opera, the he said, she said, Paul Stanley has a reputation. So it wouldn't be past him to say something like that to a fellow original, and for him to be now forever banished in Paul's mind. as meaningful. But Ace raised some additional points during this interview. The original Kiss logo, the button which recently sold with the logo that Ace drew with the diamond on top of the eye. Ace Frehley created the Kiss logo. Paul Stanley refined it. And now, you can see why Ace or, other former people associated with the band get pissed off by the revisionism, the minimizing of their creative contributions. Look how much of that set being played night after night after night was originated by Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, with the help of Sean Delaney, Bill Aucoin, Neil Bogart, and Joyce, and a whole fucking crew. We're still celebrating the originals every time we go see that fucking band with the makeup that they wear. Lonnie's like
100%. I can't agree with you more. And I say this all the time that when you go see the band, it's 90% from 74 to 79.
Axton.
Pretty good.
That's actually
Nice.
funny.
That's pretty funny.
That's pretty good, Aaron. But it's 90% 74 to 79. And then the other 10% is Creatures and Look It Up, Vinny's contributions to the band. And then we might throw in Say Yeah for some reason when they still play that live.
Psycho Circus. Yeah.
It's Psycho Circus. But Psycho Circus, I don't know. That's still originals. So originals are the ones that are
Oh, no.
Oh,
Now we're getting into it.
easy there, easy.
So yeah. But it's celebration of that original band. And then Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr in the early 80s. And we ignore everything else. Julian's 100% right. So, but we'll do anything to minimize the contributions of anyone that isn't named Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley.
Yeah, and here's another good comment on it. His sobriety should be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And sobriety doesn't mean that you don't sometimes fall and get back up. It should not be denigrated. Someone who hasn't abused drugs for 40 years shouldn't continuously be reminded of the fact that they were once a fuck up and have evolved. It does all get very old. But you know what? I just want to celebrate Kiss. I still love the music. Do you remember last year? We're coming up to a year since all those leaks happened. Yeah. And the excitement of watching something like Largo 75 and watching it. I had the audio for a few years before it came out. But actually watching that video and seeing that hunger, that energy, that power that we will never see from the band live on stage again. That's just an impossibility. The only way we will ever get to feel that energy is by watching the video, because even the people who saw the band in the 70s, 75 and earlier, those memories will fade. But you can always go back to those recordings.
I still think you can feel the energy from the band when attending a concert, but it's mostly from the crowd and the fans. Yeah. You go someplace before the concert, and there are Kiss fans all over the place, and you talk about the band and the history and everything, and then you end up at the concert and you have a great time. So I think still you can kind of draw energy from the band, but it's mostly from the fans and the crowd at this point of time. But it's still a great experience to go and watch a Kiss concert, Mark.
Mark, I love how it's referred to me now. Mark, yeah. Look, like I said before, I'm not saying I'm not going to go. I'm just saying that I don't feel that itch to go and grab tickets right now, because and then lots of people have said this on the groups I've looked at, Kiss groups, saying that they've seen them in, let's say, 96, and they want to leave on that memory rather than the memory of how they are now. And I can understand that feeling, you know. I mean, a lot of bands, you know, a lot of people said that Rush were actually lucky that they ended how they did, because they ended on a very, very high note, and that's how people will always remember them as a live band. You know, would I love to see them still play live now? Of course, I would love to see it, but who knows how they'd be now at this age, right? But you know, look, it'll probably happen. Knowing my friends, they'll probably call me up. Hey, guess what? I came through with the box. Did you come in? I'll be like, yeah, okay, and then we're gonna go. You know, so don't give up hope, Daniel. I know you're pulling for me, brother. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because he's looking forward to his shows. All right, I guess that about wraps it up for this week. Next week, I guess we'll talk about Vinnie Vincent's Juggernaut. That's been on our topic list for a while now.
We haven't gotten to it.
Vinny's latest listening party for an album that's been being mixed for 18 months that I thought was already. I wonder what I'm seriously curious. I'm very curious about whether we will have new music from Ace and from Vinny this year. That would be
that'd be interesting.
Or even new old music when it comes to Vinny. I would settle for a pristine copy of Guitar Mageddon any day of the week. Because
how much is it going to cost
on vinyl? $7,000.
$7,000. And you have to go to an event to get it, and you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Yes,
you can't play it for anybody.
Nobody can hear it except you.
Not even yourself.
You're bringing pinwheels, and you're bringing salad, and you got to do the croutons.
It's about the empty grooves on a vinyl album.
All right, that is going to be it for this week. We've had a shit ton of comments. Again, apologies for our unpolitically correct.
You have to understand, I'm from Europe.
Yes,
we can say stuff like that.
So am I.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago. You have been Americanized. I know you can't say the F word and anything on TV. In Sweden, we can do that. And I'm sorry if anyone was offended, but I was just quoting my old friends that talk like that.
Yes,
so
I understand totally.
That.
Yeah, and that's where that ends. End of topic on that. Thank you, Daniel, for that, by the way. All right, so chime in with your thoughts on this topic. If you're catching this after the fact, we're going to do more of these episodes live. It's just easier to put it all out there unfiltered. We don't do any editing anyway, so we all fuck up and misspeak. Yeah, I guess I will do. All right, that's it for this week. We shall see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.